Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Conversations with the 100, where we're going to be discussing today banking like a boss. Thank you for returning and joining us for our third and final session of our hands-on banking financial literacy workshop series. We have a great panel today. My name is Milton Harris. I serve as the Executive Director of 100 Black Men of San Antonio. Welcoming you here virtually on this cool, sunny day here in San Antonio. We have a great lineup today that's going to be speaking to our community about youth banking and investing. We have Mr. Freeman, our president and chairman of the board. We have Mr. Kevin Smith, financial expert, that's going to be joining in with Ivory today to discuss a continuation of our budgeting that we talked to the kids last week. We started these sessions talking about basic banking, how to budget, how to set up a ledger to track your expenses, all those type of great things that's beneficial for our young people to know. Now, we want these gentlemen to have a discussion on investing. What do you do once you begin to make a little money and begin to have some what we call discretionary income after you pay all of your bills? That's what we're going to be talking about here today. So without further ado, I will turn it over to, one more thing. I will be putting a pre and post survey in the chat. If you can please take those. If you've already taken the pre-survey, don't worry about it. Just take the post survey today and we'll be good to go. But I'll be reposting that throughout the conversation today as these gentlemen educate our public. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ivory Freeman.
What's going on? Hey, it's a beautiful day, as Dr. Harris says. And, I thought I was going to get up this morning and the wind was going to be just knocking me over. But the Lord has truly blessed us in it. It's beautiful out there, a little chilly, but not bad. I am excited to be here on this third session with it. As part of the 100 Black Men of San Antonio, economic empowerment is important for each and every one of us. And so we're here today to share a little bit of information to help you have that structure and that balance so that you can be even more successful than we ever thought we could be. Because as I said in the first session, you have one of the most precious gifts in the financial world in your hands right now as a youth. You have time. Time makes one of the most important factors with being financially stable. I am excited to hear. I've been part of the 100 for about 7 years. And during that actually it's been longer than that. I've had the opportunity to just see the growth and development that our programs have been able to share with you. So it's my pleasure, and I can't wait to get started with our session today. I'll turn it over to Kevin Smith and let him introduce himself. Kevin?
Hey everyone, my name's Kevin Smith, and I'm a little bit younger than these guys right here, I think, at least in my mind, right? And so my background is I am a licensed FINRA 9 and 10, and also have a 7 and 66, which basically means that I'm authorized to supervise people who invest, right? And I'm also able to sell investments myself, right? And so one of the things when we think about investments, right, is that now as Black people, we live in the greatest time in the history of the world, right? It is truly the greatest time to be an African American, right? We live in the time of our ancestors' dreams, right? Who would have thought, and over the time that when people made the transatlantic, right, there are 550,000 Africans that landed in America that we are the ancestors of, most of us, right? And we live in the time of their dreams when pretty much literally the sky is the limit for us, right? And so in financial empowerment, right, the first thing on the investment side is to define what investment is and what investment is not. Because when I was younger, right, I was told to go buy those Jordans, right, those J's. That was an investment. No, it wasn't, right? Yeah, I know people are selling them now, right? They're going back in and cleaning them up. But at the time, I didn't know anything about that. It was not an investment. right?
It's all about the look. It was all about the look.
Right.
Yeah.
So true investment is putting money aside in a vehicle, right, where you expect it to grow to a larger amount at a particular period in time. Right. And so one of the things that we were asking, like, hey, what is some basic information that you would give? Right. Basic advice is that I would invest in my 401k. Right. So wherever you start your first started job, right, if they offer a 401k, you do it. You set aside the money. Right. And at whatever level they match, you put in at that level. Right. At the minimum. That's what you should be doing at the minimum. So that's one, invest in your 401k. The second item I would do, right, is I would open a brokerage account, right? And I hate to admit this, what I'm about to admit to, but I didn't open a brokerage account until I was 28, 29. I had no idea how a brokerage account worked, right? And it's simply similar to a bank account, except you can buy stock, you can buy and sell stock and other types of investments in that, right? And the reason I say open one of those so you can get used to it is because there are myths about investments, right? It is not the excitement you see when they show you the trading floor in New York. In fact, I've been to the trading floor on New York. It is a very boring place, right? There is not all the excitement where you're going back and forth like it was in the up until about like the late 80s, early 90s. Everything is done via computer now. So as far as advice, those would be the two things. One, knowing what an investment is, right? And is not. And opening, if you got your first started job, right? If your company has a 401k, you invest in that 401k, right? Up until the point, at a minimum, up until the point where the firm matches you dollar for dollar, because that's free money. Right. And the second thing is that I would do from the investment side is simply open a brokerage account. Right. Right now they have it. You can do it on Robinhood. Right. A friend of mine was showing me what you can do on Robinhood. That's a good place to start just to kind of get a feel for what it's like. So I don't want to dominate the time, Ivory. So any questions or follow up or anything you think I missed on that?
No, Kevin, you're starting to spark that fire, and you're trying to give them that long range view of getting there and doing what's important. Hey, Armani, you still with me there? I got a question for you.
Yes.
All right. So as Kevin was talking about that and the stuff that we've talked up to this point, where would that money come from if you didn't have that job at McDonald's or Burger King or wherever to start that whole process? Where have we talked about thus far? You know, we had, you know, some different resources where we started our investment journey. And where was that at? Can you help me out a little bit there? Was it the bank? Was it under your mattress? Was it, doing some yard work? I'd see. Oh, we lost connection with her. Okay. So the point I was kind of getting to, as you continue to get beyond or get to that point where you're getting a job, and we started talking about how your goals and your saving, and we had one of the young men who said, hey, look, I was going to buy one of the gaming system and I saved a whole year for it. So and I want to kind of use this conversation to bring Kevin back in so he understands where the journey is. And so where the young man talked about that he saved for a year, bought the gaming system, and he had ownership in it, and he did his chores, and his parents gave him a little money here. He saved his birthday money. He saved, anytime he could to have that ownership. And now that gaming system is his, and he has full ownership in it and has a lot more care for it. Now, where Kevin's taking us is to that next level. So as we get into that first serious job, and I always like to use examples, living examples, and Dr. Harris and myself, we're Arkansas boys. We're most of the time we were lucky to have a good pair of shoes. It wasn't that bad, but sometimes it was. But it was pretty basic in our living. But one of the jobs I had in high school, because I felt I was an entrepreneur. I wanted to make some money, and it was up to me to do that. So I went out and I loved to roller skate. So I became I was working at a roller skating rink. And my mom and dad didn't have a car, but I got there. And so as I became a better roller skater, they said, "Okay, Ivory, come on in, and we're going to make you we're going to give you this costume, and you're going to be a roller skating bear." But at the end of the day, I was able to start accumulating that money. And exactly what Kevin said, I was just spending it. And but that was my priority, because I didn't really have a bigger goal as to where I wanted to go with that one. So as we continue to accumulate that money, whether it's through our savings, through our jobs, through money from grandma, grandpa, birthdays, whatever it is, now we need to do what's called make the money work for us, as opposed to doing what, Kevin?
As opposed to spending it, right? That's and I think a thing that we often forget, and I know I was thinking about this, right, is that I think we often forget where we realistically, where we are at, where we personally are at in the money process, right? So money is like planting, right? So
Good
I
point.
don't age myself, right? So I remember one time we planted a half acre of black-eyed peas. I hate black-eyed peas to this day. We cut a whole half an acre, right, with these black-eyed peas. But what I remember about that was that, there was a stage along the process. We were like, oh, are they ready? No. So we have to walk out there and do all this work for these black-eyed peas, right? But anyway, long story short is that we have to realistically be aware of where we are at financially. Like, we may have a friend that, hey, his parents, his parents are a lawyer, or his parents are a broker, right? And they are further along than where we are, right? So we have to realize where we're at in that process, right? And some of us have to realize that, oh yeah, that's just my mom and dad. That's not me, right? I'm right here. And so we have to build up for the wealth thing. And so that's the thing that that I'm trying to teach the girls, is that, hey, I have money, you don't, right? So that's the thing, is to realistically know where we're at financially. And also, I think I really buy into that saying, we are some product of the 5 closest people around us, or the 5 books, or whatever you want to do around that. Is that the investment part is, is it possible, right? Are those things possible? So I would say, where am I at personally, financially, right? You may be able to afford that the Xbox is. I have a real because I like Xbox and PlayStation and all those games, right? So, but I can afford it, right? But even then, it is, what do you want to do with the money, right? You can invest the money now. There are different ways you can do that, right, in order to get something additional as well. So I hope I didn't ramble on too much. I try not to ramble, but yeah, it's just taking that money and making the decision, right? You may be able to afford the PlayStation, right? Because it only costs you half of it, or maybe that last little bit of money that you really, really worked for, and you may want to figure something else out, right, along the path to that. So, but I don't want to be a killjoy around that, but really knowing where you are at, and really kind of what your goals are and what you want around that. On that piece there, as far as with the money and with the funds. And something that I like to see is, now with the internet, man, there are so many ways that you can make, you can hustle, and in the good sense of the word. I'm talking 1980s and 90s of the word, not what it's used today, right? And make an income via the internet and different things that you do on the internet around that part there. And
So yeah, Kevin, you're absolutely right. So how many out there are TikTok fans? Anybody? Somebody tell me what their favorite TikTok video. Hey, I like that background, Lashana. Hey, you took a trip with me up to the Oval Office. Thank you. That's awesome. So who's your favorite TikTok star? Anybody? Somebody want to help me out? Somebody? Nobody wants to tell me their favorite TikTok star. TikTok. That's the candy, TikTok star. But a lot of those, I was watching it recently. There was, it's not TikTok, but there was somebody who was like 7 years old that had created a business because they were testing toys and getting paid to test toys. You know, sometimes, you know, your imagination can be your best friend for becoming wealthy in the future. So we going back again a little bit about getting to the point where Kevin is taking us to in the future, because you know Kevin said that he made it was 28 before he kind of learned the value of really investing and setting up a brokerage account. You know, the journey can be a long road. So we talked in one of the last sessions about setting up a budget. How many of you who has set up a budget at this point of how you're going to spending? Anybody? Somebody? Nobody's out there doing it? Okay. So maybe we're not getting the point home, Dr. Harris. You know, we're getting challenged because they're not enjoying what we're talking about. So how many of you
Let's do this. Let me ask a question.
Go ahead, please.
So of course, in our first session, we talked to the audience about basic banking. Then we followed up in the second session, talk a little bit more about managing the budget, how to track expenses, setting up a checking and savings account, those type things. Talk to our audience about, because we're getting into a conversation about investing today.
Yes, sir.
And so I want to make sure that our audience understand the difference between checking, savings, and investments. How do we get there? As young people growing up and, they're getting ready to, as they grow up, they might go to college or go directly into the workforce. How do they get from setting up a checking savings account, getting into investing, and what's the difference?
That's a good question. So let's talk about the difference, right? So checking, savings, brokerage account. So checking is just what it says, right? It's a checking account, right? And so it's basically where you're putting money in the bank, right? And you are going to be writing checks against that money, right? It's where your paycheck's going to go. And in today's world, you're not going to make it without a checking account, right? Because I know, right? Gone are the days where you can just live cash, right? Cash is an inconvenience because if you pay your light bill with cash, you gotta drive down wherever a local CPS is or CPS outlet and get in line and go and pay your light bill. If you think about your light bill, your cell phone bill, all the bills that you have, right? If you have to pay them cash, it's an inconvenience, right? So then also you got to factor in, right? If you want to buy something or purchase something, right? You can't, send cash across the internet physically, right? It has to go through some zeros and ones, right? So a checking account is simply a place where you're an institution, banking institution, financial institution, where you're putting money at, right, in which you plan to use at some point in time, right? And it's really a convenience, right? So that's what that is there. Savings is similar, right? But it's money that you really aren't going to touch for a while. So that'd be the savings part of it there. And then with an investment account, a lot of investment accounts have a checking part of it as well, right? So you can put money, like in my brokerage account, I have money that's there, right? And I can write checks off of it, or I can use my debit card off of it. Rare occasions, but I don't with that, because with a brokerage account, it can kind of be deceptive, right? Because that number will say, let's say if it says $1,000, right? But you only have $200 in cash that's available. The other 800 is invested somewhere. And which is my wife and I would get into some back and forth about that. I'm like, don't go by what that number says on the brokerage account. Look and see how much cash is there on that part there. So the difference is checking, right? Is checking account is an active account that you're using to carry out transactions, buy stuff, pay bills, etc. Right? So most of the time you're going to get nominal interest rate on that. Savings account is money you have. You're not going to touch it. You'll get, in today's environment, you'll get a little bit of interest off of that, not much. And then a brokerage account is where you can actually go buy stocks, bonds, ETFs, mutual funds, et cetera, investments, right? And then most modern brokerage accounts have a checking component on it as well that you can write checks or use your debit card from.
Outstanding. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Dr. Harris, you got all excited there. I don't want to. You're
Yeah,
older.
just to follow up on that, because I want to make sure our audience, especially our young people, understand where the funds come from each account. And so you talked about the checking account. This is where your paycheck is going to go. Now we step up and we have our savings account. Where do we get the funds for to build that savings account?
So it depends on, each person does a little bit different, right? I personally do mine straight from my my check, right? So that's how I would do it. I have a certain amount go to pay for the for expenses from that budget part that you talked about. I know it's going to be this much in the budget. I put it there. The other part I put in the savings, right? And then I and I also let a part go into my brokerage. So for me, it comes all out of my employment check. Now that I'm self-employed and I'm running a firm, right, it's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to have to set it up a little bit different as well. But for the average person, it's going to flow from their paycheck. They're going to take that paycheck and they're going to divide it up, depending on, some of it's going to go to the budget, right? Another part's going to go to savings, and then another part's going to go to investments. So in my mind, I long-term, I go checking is like immediate. Savings is kind of semi-immediate. That's where most of our emergency funds are. Like right now, if something happened to the car, knock on wood, that's where it's coming from. It's coming out of the savings part there. And then I have the investments, which is a longer term deal there. It's how I have mine set up.
One more question, and then I'll turn it back over to Ira. So our paycheck goes to our checkings, and then once our bills are paid, there may be some extra income that we can move over to a savings. And as your recommendation for young people as they build that savings, is there a certain amount or certain percentage that we recommend they should try and save based on their expenses?
Yeah, different people have different things. Okay, so let's start. I like that. So I want to add one more part there. I think that you should, especially if you're young, right? So if you're older like we are, you may not be able to do this, but I think you should dictate your initial lifestyle based on, hey, I'm going to be making, let's say I'm making $1,000 a month, right? I'm going to take 500 of that in my imaginary world, and that's going to cover expenses, my living expenses, right? So, and then from there, and then from my viewpoint, right, savings, right? Some people tell you 10%, some people say 20%, right? For there, it's just going to depend on your needs, right? So I hate giving numbers on that. It's going to depend on what you need, right? So for us, we have a set amount that makes me feel comfortable and makes me sleep better at night, just for expenses. Car, as you get older, you're going to want a car that may cost a little bit more. Your house may cost a little bit more. So you got to kind of go through those scenarios of, hey, if my car broke down, right? What's the worst part that could break down, right? So if I had to get new tires, well, new tires is a maintenance deal, right? So we actually put our tire stuff in our savings. That's part of the maintenance. We have that there. But it's generally 2/3, right, of your check is going to cover your expenses, right? And you take that final third and break it up between savings and investments for the average person, right? That's what the average person does. So, but I think that you should determine what you want to achieve in life and then let that determine your budget. Then do that. Don't say I make $1,000 a month, so I'm going to live right out to the $1,000. So that's the wrong way to do it.
Outstanding. Kevin,
and that doesn't give you solid numbers. I know people I want to take a 2/3, want to do this, right? It's going to depend on, what your lifestyle is, right? And I think that your lifestyle I definitely know in that, 18 to 30 should bring it down a little bit, right? And I know all your buddies are going to be balling out of control, right? At 18 to 30, that should be your saving years, right? From 30 on, it should be when you start balling. So from 18, well, I would say even 15, because I have a friend of mine start off at 15. he's doing phenomenally well, right? So about from 15 to about 30, 35, right? That should be where you're building up, right? And then after that, you should start seeing it take off from there.
Outstanding, outstanding. So, hey, and I apologize, Gabriel. Thanks for changing your nameplate there. So I wasn't calling you. I guess that was your mom's title on that one before. Was that what it is? Yeah. So, hey, is everybody got the right name on their window so that I don't miscall somebody? So I got Amani's on there, Rayoni, Jamani, and Kamani, right? Did I say everybody's name right? If not, please let me know. You guys do me a favor, take your cameras, turn your cameras on for just a minute. I want to see who's all on the call here today, if you would. Hello. So Gabriel, yeah, you've been in on multiple of these sessions, right? Okay. So tell me something. Hey, thanks, Rowney. Tell me something from the last session that you found a whole lot of value on, if you would, because we've talked about a lot of different things. And I just want to make sure that we're not talking past you, because this is good stuff. I mean, what Kevin talked about, those are some really key points. But in the last session, before we got here today, tell me something you remember from it, if you would, please, sir.
But I missed the last session.
Oh, did you? Or you were on the first? You were okay. So, do you currently have your own saving account?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And what are you saving for?
A game.
A game. Okay. All right. And how long do you think it's going to take you to save for that game?
A few months.
A few months. Okay. And so you're doing everything you can to continue to contribute to that savings account, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so that the only way, how is that savings growing for you? Slowly, right?
Yes, sir.
And again, it only grows when you put another dollar, another nickel, another quarter in it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's kind of a challenging process, isn't it? It takes forever. Now I want everybody to imagine, based on what I'm trying to take you to where Kevin is at. Now let's imagine that when you put that $10 in that savings account, that how much is that game that you want to buy? Let's just start with that.
$45.
It's $45, not a whole lot of money. So you've got $10. We'll say you got $10 in that account that you did some chores around the house, or you got some birthday money, or you mowed some grass, you raked some leaves, whatever you did, you got $10 to put in that little savings account. And if you did that same process for 4 months, how much would you have? $40, right? Because that's $10 a month times 4. So again, the only time it's growing is when you put money in there. Now, what we're talking about is now having the money work for you instead of you working as hard for the money. So now, if you had it in a investment and it was growing interest, then it's going to, when you put in the $10, it could grow by itself. So each month, the $10 becomes a little bit more, and you get to your goal faster by still doing the same process. Does that make sense to you, Gabriel? Okay. All right. So that's what we're talking about doing, is now making the money work harder for you. So when you have something that gets 1% of interest versus 2% of interest versus 5% of interest versus 10% of interest, and so forth and so on, which one, Germani, which one is going to get you to your goal faster? having 10% interest or 3% interest? You didn't know it was going to be a math test today.
Is it 3?
Okay, well, 3 is a good answer, but 10 is a better answer. Okay, because it's going to grow even faster for you. So as you start investing, you want things that's going to give you a better interest. In the previous session, we simply, or even just here today, we started saying going from a checking account to a savings account. Okay, in the investment world, the savings account, you agree with this, Kevin? Savings account is a very beginning basic level of the investment process. Would you say that? Agree with that?
So I wouldn't call a savings account an investment, right? There's specific terms that they use, right? So when we talk investments in my world, right, we're talking something that has some risk to it, right?
Okay.
Whenever you're talking to someone, I think Wells Fargo may be the sponsor here, they'll give you what we call not made, right? It's not secure, it's not a banking product, it could lose value, right? So a savings account is a very rudimentary starting point to set money aside, right? And you'll get some interest, right? On that, depending on how long you go there, right? But to answer your question on which is a better investment, the 3% or the 10%, right? Well, I'm gonna answer that a little more nuanced. It depends, right? It depends on how long I have to have my money wrapped up in that investment. If you're gonna give me 3%, right, and I gotta do it for 10 years, and right, that may not be a good investment. Or, if you're gonna give me the 10% and I gotta have it there for 10 years, I may want the 3. Tell me more about the 3%, right? So you're always gonna ask the details, right? So investment, go ahead, Milton, I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask a quick question based on what Gabriel said. Gabriel is saving to buy a game.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share with our audience the difference in saving to purchase or consume versus investing to build wealth? One of the questions in the chat is, does that help us to build wealth? So can we talk about the differences in savings to consume and buy something and investing to build wealth?
All right, good. So savings to consume, right? I would not suggest that Gabriel, if he wants that game, and I depend on what's the game, right? I hope it's a really cool game. What is it?
Destiny.
It's what again?
Destiny.
That's a good game. All right. So you want that game in the next 3 or 4 months, right? I would not suggest that you invest in anything because the value is going to fluctuate, right? So you would save in a savings account or a checking account. I put it in my savings because a lot of traffic goes through my checking account, so you may not have it. So you're saving for a consumption of something, right? Versus if you're investing, investment from my mindset is a year or more, right? Something you're setting this money aside. The value can go up and down. You could have gone through the last two or 3 weeks in the stock market. You really don't care because it's the long distance. It's off, right? You have it off. It's over the horizon, right? So you have a bit of time before you do that. So that's the difference. So you're saving so you're going to want that. You're going to want to pull that money out in less than a year. So I wouldn't recommend that you put that in an investment at all because the value is going to go up and down, right? Versus you're saving for retirement, that's a different thing, right? So if I'm saving for retirement, which is getting closer than what I thought of, getting closer year by year here, right? My investment style is going to be different, and what I'm going to invest in is going to be different, right? So saving for a long term is just that long term, right? And you're willing to put more money in over a longer period of time, right? Versus saving for a purchase, right? You're not gonna put that in an investment, or at least I wouldn't recommend that you put it in an investment, right? So that's the difference there.
That's good. That's good. So time is the big determination as to how you're going to structure that investment.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So
and I would say, right, so if I'm Gabriel, right, and I want destiny, right, so I'm thinking, man, this money my mama's giving me, I got to do this and this, right? It's coming slow. So can I go and buy some OJs from somebody, right? I'm going to start looking that up. I'm serious, right? So whereas you and I would have to hustle and go get some lawns and do some stuff like that, let me see if I can get some J's, right? Let me see if I can go, my mother and my mom still loves swap shops, right? Swap meetings, right? Flea markets. I mean, we would go there and spend like a half a day, drive my dad crazy, right? So I'm going to be going like, okay, this is the internet age. Can I go get something like that? Or maybe mom, dad have some vintage. Your parents probably my age. So, the 80s still kind of vintage, not quite, right? We're going to be looking for things like that. We're going to be thinking outside of the box on items that we can purchase, right? At a retail price low, and turn around and sell it we're going to pay wholesale prices so we can sell at a retail price. So I'd be thinking about that. Or maybe you got some old games. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking in my head. What's going off in my head there.
Yeah, and those are good points because I always say one man's junk is another man's treasure.
Yep.
You just never know. I use it. I'll use an example is like, how many of you guys are into any of these Pokemon trading cards? Anybody out there? Anybody know about those? Well, my son was a huge advocate of it. And this is, as we kind of talk about investing for the future and things like that, again, using time to your advantage. So my son was when he was about your age, he was younger, he collected the original Pokemon cards. And I thought, oh man, why are you saving all those junk cards? And he, every time we got out and he got a little extra pennies, hey Pop, let's go can I buy some more Pokemon cards? And so he became what I would say now is a little subject matter expert on the quality, which was the good card, which was the bad card, the holographic cards, and he took the time to actually put them in little document protectors. And he actually started trading them around because the Pokemon cards were a game that you played, but there were some that you didn't trade, you just kept. So rolling ahead about 15 years later, some of those same cards that we bought for less than $1 are worth $400 to $500 a piece. So as Kevin has talked about, this is a very, very basic way to kind of start creating opportunities for wealth, because now he was saying, hey, look, so if I go and sell those cards and I take that, what he had accumulated almost $3,000 worth of cards that's now somebody has value in, he now could turn around and put 3,000 into a brokerage account, because I think it's kind of important that we explain to these students that there is a cost levels or platforms or tiers as you get into the investing process. Kevin, you want to speak about, how much at what point will I have enough to start investing into something other than my savings account to get into those next levels?
Okay. Yeah. So officially, they're going to tell you need about, I think it's $1,000. No, I think it's $500 to open a brokerage account, right? If you do Robinhood, I forget how much. Robinhood's pretty cheap as well, right? So about, let's say $500, right, to open up a brokerage account. If your parents already have wealth as well, or have not, I wouldn't consider myself wealth, but have assets, right? Your parents could possibly open up a brokerage account for you for like $250, right? So it depends on you, and then also, in the situation with your parents as well. So you can get an account open for as little as $250, a brokerage account there. Now, that being said, right, depending on the broker, right, your commissions may be a little bit higher. Right. But now brokerage commissions are dirt cheap. right? Even then, you can get that taken care of, right? But then the more money you get, right, into your brokerage account. So if you're, say, at Merrill Edge, or I have my account, and most places are like this. Well, if you're at the $25,000 mark or more, right, your commissions, you get, I think I end up getting, like, I want to say 30 trades, right, free each month. So it's gonna depend on, so it's about 250 with your parents there with you to get a brokerage account open. And then the more money you have, I know at mine the break point is 25,000. You get free trades, right? And as you keep adding more to it, there's more benefits that get added to that, right? So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. So does anybody in here think that, or can help me say how easy or how hard it would be? And I'm gonna pick on Armani, I think, to help me answer this question, to get to that first level of having $500 to start investing. How Armani, how hard do you think that's going to be in your mind? This is
not hard.
Not hard at all, because I think you were the ones that said you're going to be a millionaire, right? Yeah. Is anybody else planning on being a millionaire or multimillionaire? I just want to poll everybody, because if not, we may not be talking to the right group of people. Kevin, is anybody else want to be a millionaire?
Yes.
Okay, Jamani does. Yeah. Hey, Gabe, how about you? Yep, got a thumbs up. Rayoni, how about you? See, this is a sanity check. See if they're still with me. Anyway, but this whole wealth journey begins, at this level, so that you get the knowledge of what's going on, and whether it's setting some simple goals of, hey, I want to buy a game, and from a game I want to buy a car, from a car I want to buy a house, from a house I want to buy a subdivision, or whatever it's going to be. You just got to continue to never let the ceiling, never let your financial goals have a ceiling, and let that be a limiting factor.
And Ivy, here's the thing, right? So $1 million, right? You can make that different ways. We have blue collar people all the time who retire with millions of dollars, right? Or who even end up making millions of dollars just because of their habits and their savings. So it doesn't have to be something that's complex, right? Which in my mind, when I was their age, I thought I had to do something like invent something, come up with something that was just way out there. When, a friend of mine, we grew up the same time, he was a barber, cut hair for a living, right? And I wish I had been as smart as he was, but I wasn't, right? He cut hair for a living, right? And he lived that, like I said, that 15 to about 35 or so, kind of a Spartan lifestyle, which means he just lived with the minimum, right? Nothing too fancy. J's weren't his thing, right? And he saved a lot of money up, right? And he invested it right, properly, right? And I want to say by the time Ken was like 35, 36, he had accumulated $2-3 million. I mean, cutting hair, taking the money from cutting hair and doing different things with it, right? And all above board. And so it wasn't very complicated to do what he was doing, right? Cut hair, bought a house, right? Bought a little sugar shack, flipped it over into another house, right? Just from all that, from the income he was generating from cutting hair. And so another friend of mine was a plumber, which I don't like, because you got to crawl into houses and stuff. So that's not my deal. I can cut the hair though, but just very basic level jobs. And by the time he was 35, Ken was, he had to have at least 2-3 million, because he had probably more than 24 little sugar shack houses throwing off money, the whole thing. So by the time he was rolling in his 40, he could choose to work or not work. So he would show up to the shop, and he actually bought a building, right? Got it all set up, and he was renting that building out to other barbers. So this is at 40. This is what he was doing. So all that time he put in, right? Now some people go, well, he could have lived better than that. Yeah, now granted, it was just him, right? So he was living he was enjoying himself, right? But not near to the level that his income dictated he could have. but he saved that money. Now in his 40s, I mean, when we hit our 40s, he was just balling out of control. So, but just very basic things. It doesn't have to be the very complicated route. Now, my wife and I, we argue about this all the time. Not discouraging college. I went to college. I have several college degrees, right? And the student loan debt to go with it, right? But when I look at Ken cutting hair, I mean, his lifestyle is you know, his lifestyle is better than mine at this point in our lives, right? So I'm getting there, right? But if I'd have started younger, right, doing some of the stuff that he did that was very simple, very basic, wasn't very complex, right? He set himself up to be in a really nice situation. So on that part there. So now his brokerage account is got a few more commas than mine.
Outstanding. Yeah. Again, I think you're emphasizing time and focus on what needs to happen. So here's a question for somebody who's brave to answer this. So if Kevin and I said, hey, we love what you guys are doing, we love your energy, we're going to reach into our wallets and we're going to give you $500 a piece to invest in whatever you wanted to do. So you'd have $1,000 to start investing. I'm curious to see what you would invest in and at this point. Anybody want to give me? How about you, Jamani? What would you invest in if I give you $1,000 right now?
I heard of some like, isn't it something like Bitcoin or something?
Okay, Bitcoin. That's the everybody wants to get into Bitcoin. All right. So Armani, how about you? What would you do?
I'm thinking.
Okay. All right. Gabriel, how about you? What would you invest in?
I would just save 90% of it.
Oh, 90% of it. Okay. Okay. But unfortunately, under this thing, Kevin and I say you have to invest it because we want you to grow your money. We want you to take a little bit of risk. Remember, he talked about savings is not considered a risk. It's not necessarily considered an investment. So we want you to invest in something. What would that be? See, I'm not going to give you the easy out. He phoned a friend there.
Stocks.
Stocks. Well, what kind of stocks though? Okay. Because
Technology.
Technology. Okay. So maybe like Dell computers or HP computers or Apple computers. Okay. Very good. And both you and Jamani hit the nail on two things that I wanted to kind of start emphasizing on. Sometimes when we start investing and we're told about stocks and bonds and investing, that's not as clear as most people think. So we're going to take a little step back and say, okay, so Kevin, between you and I, let's talk about what is a stock.
Okay. Yeah. Before we address the stock thing, right? So we have three guys answered. Three of you answered differently, right?
Armani, she's still
Armani,
waiting.
right? I'm sorry. I say I'm, guys general. I'm old school.
She didn't give us her answer yet. So.
Yeah, she had to think about it, right? But that's going to tell us something about it, right? So
it's going to be a good answer.
So if you came to me, right, and I'm your financial advisor, which is what we call a broker nowadays, financial advisor. I have three different personalities, so I'm going to present three different investment strategies, right? Gabriel is conservative, is all heck. He wants as much in cash as he could possibly get there. So he's what we call a conservative investor. He's like, I'm going to save 90%. I may put like the other 10% over and I'll invest it. So he's conservative. We know that. So all of his portfolio, we're going to tailor it in a conservative manner to where he's not going to see a lot of fluctuation in the value, right? He's not going to get this huge return, right? But he's a conservative investor, right? So I think it was
Jamani.
Jamani, right? Said Bitcoin, right? I'm like, right? So he is an aggressive investor,
yeah.
right? So so aggressive investor, he's gonna see his portfolio be up one week, down the next week, up, right? But if he can live with that, he's gonna make more money than Gabriel would long term, right? But he also runs a risk of not doing very well, right? So it depends, right? So I got two different personalities. And then Armani was like, let me think about it, right? So she's probably middle of the way. She wants to weigh her options, be more. So she'd probably be more in what we would consider a moderate investor, right? So she can take a little bit of risk, but she don't want too much, right? So we're gonna tailor each investment portfolio according to the personalities that we've been given there, right? So that's what we have there, right? So to answer your question, what's a stock, right? A stock is ownership in a company, right? So when you see my friend Mark Zuckerberg and all his billions, right? Does he have that in cash? Does Mark have that much money in cash? No, nobody has that much money in cash, right? But he has it in stock securities, right? So he took his company, Facebook, sold it to venture capitalists, kept a controlling interest for himself, right? And so that's how his wealth is accumulated. As it's accumulated because he has shares or ownership in Facebook. If you or I were to purchase shares of Facebook, right, we would be solid partners, right? We get to vote, but Mark has more shares than we do, so he gets to outvote us, right? So that's shares. That's what stocks are, right? And so then you have the other item, which is bonds. Bond is just debt, right? Let's say here recently, Bexar County did a municipal bond offer, right? So basically they're saying, hey, we're going to sell debt to you, right? In exchange for whatever, I forget what the rates were, right? So if they're trying to raise, let's say for my example, $1 million, right? They're trying to bring in $1 million. So they're going to sell bonds for $1 million. And let's say they're going to pay us, and this is crazy, but they're going to pay us 3% interest on that $1 million. So it's about $30,000, right? So 3% of $1 million is 30,000. I think, right? Because 10% is rough numbers, right? My math's off. So that's what that means. So they've sold us bonds, which is a debt, which means they're obligated to pay us. If they don't pay anybody else, they got to pay us, right? Whereas stocks, which is ownership in the company, right? We do as well as a company does, right? And that's what drives the price up and down with that you see in the market. Now, where you get really interesting is where you do things like ETFs and mutual funds, which is how most of us have access to the stock market. ETFs, it stands for traded fund. I forget what the E stands for.
I think it's
electronically traded funds, right? Which is essentially a portfolio of stocks. Some have bonds in them, but let's say I have an ETF, which is essentially a hedge fund. I go out, and I say I'm only gonna buy, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, right? So I have shares of the Fortune 500 in my ETF, right? And so instead of selling those individual shares of stock, we sell the ETF, right? Which is a hard concept for me to get for a long time, right? Is that you essentially are selling your portfolio back and forth in the performance of the portfolio, right? So as the stocks go up, right, that basket of stocks do better, our ETF will go up in price as well. And a mutual fund is similar, except it doesn't trade in real time like an ETF does.
Awesome. And I apologize. I said yes, but it's an exchange traded
fund. I was like, wait a minute, let me go Google that.
So it's good. So just to make sure I've got this straight, Kevin. So when I forced Gabriel, instead of putting into his savings that 90% to buy $1,000 worth of Apple, then he becomes a part owner in Apple. Is that correct?
Yeah, he becomes part owner in Apple to his percentage, right? So let's say his $1,000 worth turns out to be, 0.01% of Apple. So he technically owns 0.01% of Apple, right?
That's pretty cool.
He's a solid partner with Mark Zuckerberg.
Did you guys realize that? I mean, that you could have ownership in these major, you want to own Walmart, you want to own Amazon, you want to own a Tan TV. Wait a minute. I don't think we can own Tan TV because it's not a publicly traded company. It's private.
Mhm.
What's the difference between those two?
I like this question. So, all right. So private is the private individuals own all of the company, right? So
Oh,
I have
okay.
a partnership with my wife, right? So we own Dynamic Life Press. She owns like 52%, I own 48 or some number like that, right? And so it's just the two of us, right? And so I don't know what the TAN ownership is, right? So TAN is privately owned by one, two individuals, right? I assume. I really don't know much more than that.
We're just guessing that. That's good.
Invite me back, okay? But it's a limited individual, right? But if you do like Facebook, and I'm using Facebook because I've got to do some work
Good example.
on my account, right? So Facebook is open to the public, which
Okay.
means anybody can own Facebook, right? Mark Zuckerberg is going to hold a controlling interest because he doesn't want people voting him off, right? But everyone else also can purchase Facebook, right? You individually can own Facebook. A retirement fund can own Facebook, right? So it's traded amongst the public, right? And so there's certain rules around that on that part there, but you own part of that actual company, right? And while we're on ownership, right? So the path to wealth, and I didn't know this when I was younger, is ownership. The path to wealth is ownership, right? And I would say not just purchasing a house, right? That's the first path for most people, right? But also owning land, right? So that's the beginning investment, right? So owning a house, owning land, right? But purchasing those at deep discounts, right? Not at inflated rates, right? Is a house an asset or a liability? Well, it depends on how much you paid for it, right? If you pay less than what you owe, right, on the mortgage, I remember our first house we purchased, we bought it in a hot market. Boy, we were waiting to buy that house, right? And the house prices in the last 5 years had almost doubled, right? It was like this crazy rate. So it was like the first part of 2000s, right? And so it essentially was a liability because we had paid far more than what that house reasonably was worth, right? And our mortgage showed that, right? So, but had we gone back in, so we bought, that was our first house, right? That we ended up with. But when the market crashed and tanked, right, we actually went in and bought another house that we ended up renting out and helping us pay the mortgage, which is really weird right there, but helping us pay the mortgage on that first one because those second 2 and 3 houses that we purchased, we bought at a deep discount. I mean, we bought them rock bottom low, right? When we put tenants in it, right? I mean, those 3 tenants paid our current mortgage, right? Got us out of a really bad situation that we were in financially, and we ended up on top when we ended up selling those 3 houses plus the one that we took a loss on, the one that we bought at the crazy prices, which was good from a tax perspective. But overall, the difference between we bought that first house at the top of the market and then we ended up buying these other 3 at the end where the market had crashed and in real estate in our areas and ended up renting those out. So that's another part that people don't get is ownership comes through. I mean, wealth comes through ownership, right? And ownership of land, right? And then also investments as well.
Outstanding. So this is going down a really good pathway there. So we've talked about being real risky with the Bitcoin, and we talked about being real conservative with our other options there. So in the instance of going from private companies, so if Gabriel, Germani, and Armani, and all of us, we had our company that was a private company, and we were selling these little widgets, for X price, and the company just continued to grow, then as a business, we could go from this private company to a public company and make more money on our company because we're going to sell parts of our company or shares, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, those shares, as we, most of us know, maybe not everybody, that's where we're talking about it gets traded on the New York Stock Exchange, right?
Mhm.
Or one of those markets, and
Foreign
that's
exchanges. Yep.
the exchanges. And so, you know, sometimes we've seen it where you had that little what's called a ticker that's rolling across the screen. So our company, as we went from from private to public, then would have a little symbol, a 4-letter symbol that we could look up, or anybody in the world could look up and say, hey, look, I want to be just like Gabe, and I want to own part of his company because I think it's a great product. And so, but Gabe, Germani, and Armani, the three of us, the four of us are majority owners of that company, meaning we have over 51% of it. But as we release different products, more widgets, and the company has more success, the part of the company that we're sharing that's traded becomes more valuable, right?
Yeah, the whole part of the company becomes more valuable. Okay, so let's talk about that, right? How is most wealth created in America, right? So you think about Zuckerberg, you think about Bill Gates, you think about Warren Buffett, right?
Okay.
Name anybody, right? Name them, right? It's all through companies, the ownership of companies.
And multiple companies, probably.
And multiple companies, right? So, so Bill Gates, Microsoft, right? So that's how he achieved his billions, right? Now he has quote unquote, he has diversified, but he still has to maintain a certain piece of that, right? But this is something that most people don't realize either, right? A lot of wealth is made through the private sale of your companies.
Oh, wow.
Right? So in the industry that I'm in, I've seen, we actually had what do we call them? We actually had a department or a team. We had a team of specialists, and their one job was to help individual business owners sell their business. And that's what their one job was. And so we had last year, there were 3 businesses that sold, right? That sold their 3 individuals sold their private business, private owned corporation. They sold it. Right. And they made out extremely well. One guy had about 100 million, another had around 200 or 300 million. Right. And now they ended up selling it to bigger companies. Right. But they own their business. They did extremely well. And then they cashed out. That's the dream, right? Is to open up a private corporation, do something extremely, extremely well. Right. And then you get purchased by a bigger company.
Outstanding. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when people think about Oprah Winfrey, right? Think about Oprah Winfrey, right? So what's they go, oh my God, she made all this money. Well, Oprah had been doing the Oprah show for quite some time, right? And she really didn't become wealthy until she bought ownership of Oprah Winfrey, right? So then she had the Oprah show, right? Mm-hmm. And so part of the deal with her team that they did was that when they went and were selling part of it to Paramount Pictures, right, is that they requested to own part of Paramount.
Right.
So that's what they have there. Think about who's your favorite rapper, Gabriel? Favorite rapper?
He doesn't listen to music.
You don't listen to music? Armand, no. Who's your favorite rapper? Am I the only person who listens to rap music? Oh my God.
Who was that?
I said, am I the only one who listens to rap music? Okay. I'll give you my favorite old school rapper. You guys would consider him old school. He's not, but you consider him old school. 50 Cent, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so old school rapper, right? So 50, right? One of the smartest deals he did was, he advertised for vitamin water. Right, which is I thought was weak Kool-Aid, but that's just me personally, right? And so they asked him to promote that for them, right? This was like 2005, 2006 in his heyday, right? He said, "I'll do it, but I want equity. I don't want you to pay me money, right? Give me equity." And so they gave him the equivalent of right about 5-10% of the company, right? And so he got out there and worked, right? Well, that company, right, they ended up selling to Coca-Cola, right? 50's take of that was $100 million.
Woo! Get out
And
of
that's
there.
what set him up to be this mega personality and mega wealth, right?
Nice, nice.
Ended up being $100 million because he had ownership in there, right? So favorite rapper, right? So let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to think of one here that's appropriate. It doesn't have to. Anyway, let's think of whoever your favorite rapper is, right? Which is the benefit that these guys have, right? Is that they're smart, they're picking up, right? Is that the big thing now is that they have equity because the platforms have changed and they own their music.
Absolutely.
They don't have to go through Paramount Records, right? They own the copies, right? So which is why you see these young guys who are coming up and who are extremely wealthy through music because they own the music, right? So it's always ownership that's going to get you the biggest wealth multiplier, if you will. A friend of mine he's probably about 5 years younger than I am, right? So he had a really interesting business. He's a doctor, right? But he did this telemed stuff, right? Where they had this stuff like you and I are talking, but they had the system down pat, right? They had been doing it a while. So COVID really set him up nice. He ended up selling his company between he and his partner. Just two people owned it, right? They sold for $150 million.
Right. So, hey, question again, going back to our company. I think this is a good idea. Hey, Gabe, what do you think about it? Can we be successful with this process? You know, what we're talking about, building a company, going from private to public, and getting stockholders. You think that's going to be productive for us? Is that a good opportunity?
Would be a good opportunity because we can start making more money.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. Yeah, I mean, because what we want people to do, we want them to buy the stock, our stock in our company, and we want them to invest in it. So again, we can make more money without having to do anything. Because literally, as long as we continue to produce our little widgets and we're doing well, and the company's doing well, and people are going to continue to buy and trade those stocks because they have options of buying it at any time during the day, or right, Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when they buy it, they could buy it at different points, as we talked about, the low points and the high points, the mid points. Let's kind of talk about when is it best for them to buy our stock if they want to continue to make money also, and how do they now make money off the stock that they bought off of us? Because all we're going to do is continue to make our widgets, do it well, not have any mistakes, not create problems. We're just going to continue to truck along and have a solid company, but our stock's going to continue to grow in capability. So, but how does that person now make money off of that stock?
Through the business owner?
No, now we're talking about the stockholder in our company that we have.
Yeah, so they're going to make money between the difference of what they purchase it for versus what they sell it for. So let's say, I'll give you a perfect example. And in 2000, I want to say 8 or 9, right? I forget. Whenever we had the market crash several years, it was a decade ago now. Geez, man, I feel older, right? So at that time, Bank of America, which I work for, full disclosure, I used to work for them, right? I don't work for them anymore. They were selling like $1 a share. I mean, the financial companies just went in, they took it in the shorts, right? But you have the big major ones, right? So I bought Bank of America at that time for about, I want to say $1.50, $1.70. It was $1.75 average share, right? And people thought I was crazy. They're like, oh my God, the banks are taking it down. I mean, Bank of America was like $1. I think it was the low one time. You had, at that time, you had American Express, right? Which had taken it in the shorts. They were like $4.50, $4.25, depending on the day, right? And I just jumped in and overloaded in there, right? So I ended up putting about $20,000, $30,000 in there, right? Let's just say, and I didn't do this because I divided it out across 4, right? But over when it corrected itself, right? So that was 2009, right? 2010, Bank of America was selling at about $6.25. So I took my $1.75 on average. Now it's $6. And
6 times. Wow.
6 times, right? So that's the difference, right? So I got $5. And I was itching, but I was like, I need to sell some of it. What if this happens, right? And so about that time I started working. It was like 2010. I started working for Merrill Lynch, which the bank had purchased, right? It was $6.25 a share, right? I took all, okay, repeat, all of my 401k and then put it all in the bank. Because the reason I did that, because the way I measured the value, it was at the time when I bought at $1.75, right? If you just took out the debt, right? If you just took the capital value of what the bank owed, I mean, all of its assets, the assets were like $10 a share versus the $1 a share that I was purchasing. So I was buying $10 of banking assets versus $1.75. And at that time, the government got involved, right? And the government said, hey, you know, this is crazy. We're going to stabilize the market. And the government gave Bank of America about $1 trillion, which they paid out dividends. That's neither here nor there. You can question the rationality of what they did. But basically, I'd say how much is it just say worth if we just take the assets and I divided it by the number of shares? It's like $10 to like 175. And even at 650, people are like, oh my God, you should diversify now. I was like, why? Because at the 650, it was like $20, $30 of assets per share against the 6. It was something similar with American Express as well, right? So in 2016, when the madman took over the presidency, it went from, I think we ended up capping out like at 26, almost $30 a share from that previous time. It was a huge jump.
Did you sell it? Huh?
Yeah, I sold off on it. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, yeah. You should have hold. I just looked it up.
But see right there.
$40.
See, I should have held, right? When my debate was, it's paring out, right? On the share price, right?
Gotcha.
It's going there. The measure that I was using was doing well, right? And so it's just that's just what that was just my nature, right?
Yes,
on
sir.
That part there. And so, you know, just like you had Gabriel, you had Jamani, you had Armani, right? Different personalities, right? Where do you buy, where do you sell at, right? And now I'm a little more diversified, not as concentrated as I was, but it presents the opportunity, right? So that's what I would do there. So you told me the $500. If I'm a kid, right, and I have my 50-year-old brain, what would I invest in, right? So my first thing, given that I'm Gabriel, I like to play video games, I'm gonna live stream some stuff.
Okay.
Let's see what I can do on live streaming, right? There's money there. There's a lot of money. You see kids here on the all the time who are live streaming. So that's just a different way of making money. There's a kid there's several of them. Oh my God, I can't believe they're everywhere, right? Who live stream. They play video games for a living. And to me, that's the strangest thing. But a friend of mine said, Kevin, you watch them flip houses on TV. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, it's about the same, right? So, but there are people, you can see the numbers in there who are playing video games, live streaming it with a 200, not even a 200, if they're getting fancy, they have a $295 stream box, right, by Black Magic, and they stream that, they set up their accounts, and they're getting a percentage of the revenue ads that are coming in from there. However, there's a couple of different ways they get paid. And I know some of them have been really cool. They'll take that money that they're making on that stream where they're streaming video games, right? They'll take that and open up another website, right? Do something else there, and that they can sell a physically hard product, right? And so that's so that's how a lot of people are doing it. A lot of smart kids are doing that. So like, you know, I feel like saying, Gabriel, you waste your money. When he said, oh, this, I was like, oh my God, dude, they're live streaming that bad boy everywhere on YouTube. I see it everywhere. So he can strictly do that and make money just live streaming games,
Right.
depending on how creative his personality is, he don't look like he'd be cursing too much there on that. He could make, there's money to be made there, to be generated there. So it's a little bit different. I have another friend, one last story, right, who cuts hair, not Ken, but a young guy who cuts hair.
You got a lot of people cut hairs for somebody who doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I used to get free haircuts. Now it's a little bit right there on the side there.
I'm with you.
But a young guy, right, cuts hair, and he uses that as he advertises via the internet, and he's a gamer, so he's cutting hair and gaming. Who would have thought? I was like, all right, if you're getting paid, it's legal.
Exactly. So that's the great example, of buying something, letting it grow, mature over time. So as Kevin said, he bought it at $1. He sold it at $1.75, and he sold it, you said again, at $26?
Yeah, 26, 20, 27 something was the average price.
Okay.
Right?
And if for some reason, if he would have not made that one, it's now trading at $40 a share.
Yeah.
So when you guys look at that, is that a significant increase on his investment, or is it just doing okay? Well, does anybody give me a little feedback on that? Yeah, so I will tell you that, it is. So Germani, a question for you, sir, if you're still with me there. So if you have something that you don't realize that you have, what is that? How would you describe that? It's a kind of a strange question. If you have something you don't realize you have it, do you really have something, or do you have something? So if you have something you don't realize you have it, then you don't know you have it. So sometimes people say that in the trading world with investing, you have the opportunity to grow your money and you don't realize it. And the technical term is called unrealized gains. And until you sell it and actually get money for it, you don't realize those gains. And so that's the challenging part of when do I buy and when do I sell? But the technique is you always want to look at the opportunity to buy at the lowest opportunity. And you want to sell at the highest opportunity. And an example of, is anybody out there have an iPhone 10, 11, 12, 13, or you got a one of these Samsung, top of the line phones? So every year, most of those companies come out with the new model. Okay. And before it comes out, the marketing department tries to do their best to create some type of buzz. Oh, it's a limited availability. It's coming out next week. It's the hottest thing since phones were ever created. It's lighter, it's brighter, it's got a better camera, so forth and so on, so that you want to have it before anybody else does. So you create a demand, and that demand hopefully will then drive the price of that stock higher and higher so that the company can make more money. Now, the challenge is, okay, this new phone comes out, it's out on the market, it's riding high, it's very popular, but then using the example that the battery started exploding on it. All of a sudden, it's riding at a high point. Soon as that news goes out on the street, the price of that stock could drop tremendously, and all of a sudden the value of, if you were a stockholder in that company, goes down dramatically. And then that's where you as an investor, a stockholder, has to kind of make some big decision. Do I sell it at a loss because it's now down below the point potentially I bought it? And using the example of, if you bought it at $10 when it came out on it was popular, it went up to $20. And now because of the battery exploding, it's at $3. From the $10 you bought it at to the $3, it's $7 less. So if you sold it, you're losing $7 for every dollar you put into it. And so now, again, you can absolutely make that sell, but Gabriel, would you say that's a smart investment or a not so smart investment?
Not so smart investment because you're losing $7.
Right, exactly. So what are your options at that point?
Probably to sell your stock.
You could sell the stock at the loss. What else could you do?
Put more money into it.
You could just hold what you could put more money into it, because because now your buying power, instead of buying at $10, you're buying at $3. So let's say that you did put more money into it. If the stock went back up to $11, you've just made a whole lot of money because you bought at a low point that rose back up to a higher point. So that was a very smart investment. And I tell a lot of people, hey, look, if you've got extra money and it's just sitting idle, invest it, especially when the market, and you'll hear it on the news, the Dow Jones industrial average is down today. The market has taken a severe dump. It could become a panic for smart investors that have extra money. That's the time to invest in the market, because you're buying at a discount. You're buying at a lower price. Kevin, did I say that all right? Do you agree?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think for me, right, and is to, I use a measurement, right, which for me was, what am I comparing the price to, right? And I was just saying, hey, if I bought the whole thing, how much would it cost me to buy Bank of America, right now? And you can go get that. You can get that quote pretty much anywhere, right? To buy Bank of America, right? At the time when it was like $1.75, which is like basically it came out to like $10 a share. That's how much to buy the whole thing, $10 a share. So it was selling at $1.75, and all the experts could tell you. Some people said it should be selling like $20 a share if you want to buy the whole thing. So that was the mindset that I used on it. And I was like, oh, okay, let's do it, especially there. So so that's the one thing. But just on investments, right? I know some of this, there's different ways you can make money on just that stock, right? I mean, there's options, right? Which is, the right to buy or sell. There's all kind of different ways you can make money. Just depends on, what you want to do and what your, what we call risk tolerance is, right? On that part there. So like Gabriel's into streaming games. I'd assume Jumani and Armani are as well. How do you make money playing streaming video games? Where's the source of the money? Tell me, Gabriel, you're on mute.
Most likely, like on Twitch, you can get donations.
Okay. Twitch is donations, right? What else? What's another source of money? So we got donations. That's one. Germani, I want to stream. I'm an old man. I want to stream video games. I like Call of Duty. I want to talk trash to you young guys while I'm shooting. What's my source of money? I can make money, like come beat the old man, right? I just talk buku trash to all y'all. That's the source of income, because all y'all gonna be like, let's take that old fool out, right? Well, I just dunk on you. So I got source of money. One, donations, right? Two, advertisements. That's a source of money there. Three, I could get the latest game before anybody else does. Depends on how many kids under a certain age that come to take out the old dude, right? So that's a source of income that you could draw there, right? So what's the other source of income that you could make, right? Have political commentary, right? As you're playing, you're talking smack about a group of people, depending on what it is, right? I don't suggest that because, nowadays it dox people. But there's a lot of ways there, right? I think another one that you see, I don't know how I hadn't looked at it in a while, but there are a couple people making a few $100,000 a year playing video games, right? That's just crazy. What's the problem with that? So how do you set that up? So Gabriel, you want to make $100,000 in your name? Gabriel Fuller, $100,000. No, you don't. You don't want to make $100,000 in your name. You want to make $100,000 in a partnership, an LLC with Gabriel Fuller, right? Because you want to do, as my friend tells me, right? You want to recharacterize the income. It's a CPA term, right? So once you hit that 100,000, right, that money is going to be taxed higher at your individual rate versus if you put it through LLC or a corporation or a partnership, right? So I asked you guys, like, who's your favorite rapper, right? You name your favorite rapper. I think I just looked up a guy named, I think it's Lil Durk. I think that's how he says it, right? He got braids. He's from Chicago, something called drill music. Do you think he makes all that millions of dollars he makes? Does he make that through Lil Durk? No, he doesn't, because the tax rate on that is like 30-40%, right? And then he'd be self-employed, so he's going to probably be paying almost 50% in taxes on that money. He owns that. He gets paid through a corporation, right? He gets paid through a corporation, which lowers his tax level, right? So think about that. So when as you start your Twitch account, right, and you hit that 100K mark, all right, you want to do that through a partnership. Basically, what I would suggest you do is you contact the CPA and let them help you with that, right? And then I have a buddy who's been doing a pretty good job with me on that. That's also part of investments, right? Is you want to be able to plan for taxes, and you do that by deciding how are you going to characterize your tax situation, right? Are you going to run it through a corporation? Are you going to run it through your individual name, right? So you think about it, right? Richest man right now is Jeff Bezos, right? Richest man on the planet, because what he owns, right? How much money do you think Jeffrey Bezos, as my daughter says, how much you think he makes? Germani, how much money does Jeffrey Bezos make a year? Salary. Google it.
All right. You
Not
said
his net
Jeffrey.
worth, salary. Jeff Bezos, Amazon.
I found this on the web for what's Jeff Bezos' salary. Do you have Basil Amazon?
Bezos, B-E-Z-O. What is it? It's about 500,000, right? 250,000. That's what he makes a year. It's his salary. It's crazy, right? Man worth billions of dollars. Why? Why does he do that? Why does Warren Buffett make $250,000 a year? Right? Because the money's taxed differently. He's going to be taxed 40%, 35 to 40% on his income.
It said close to 200 billion.
No, that's his net worth. He don't make 200 billion. That's his net worth. That's the difference, right? When he cashes that stock payment in, right? So when he cashes that stock payment in, he's only going to pay about 2%, only about 10%, 10% on that money, right? So why would you? So he makes, his salary is about 250 to 500,000 is what his salary is.
Hey, Kevin, actually, I looked it up. It said from 1998 to 2021, his base salary was $88,840.
He's eligible for a tax credit, a child tax credit at that price right there. That's just me going off the top of my head.
A billionaire making $88,000 a year.
Getting a child tax credit.
It's all about knowing the system, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, so this whole thing on investment, right? I know we've been given, basic items, open up a brokerage account, open up a checking account, basic stuff, budget, which nobody likes to do, but everybody does who has money, right? I have to remind myself of that every 2 weeks because we have to do ours every 2 weeks, right? Or else I'll forget about it, right? Every 2 weeks, you got to look at that budget and make sure you're staying in tune with the budget, right? Anthony O'Neill, I think that's a guy you can look up. Anthony O'Neill, he's a young guy, probably in his 30s, right? He is big time on budget, right? So that's the budget there. But the other thing is, as you open up a business and you do businesses, and ownership is the path to wealth, right? And because that way you can control what you pay yourself, right? You want to pay yourself in shares, $88,000. Oh, it just kills me, right? But he controls that. Same thing, Warren Buffett, $250,000 a year, right? That's his salary because of he can control the taxation of that.
Absolutely.
So, Gabriel, when you go set up your Twitch account, you're making that few $100,000, right? You want to put that in. You want to consult a CPA and see what the best structure is that you can put that in to reduce your taxes, or not. I wouldn't say reduce your taxes. Roger would tell me I recharacterize the income, which has an impact on my taxation. I said that right. Yeah, there we go.
There you go. There you go. So, you know, we've been going on. I just looked at the clock. I didn't realize that we've been going an hour and a half here. And I think the information that we've been able to put out to you guys has been hopefully worthwhile. You know, over the last couple of weeks, we've gone from just talking about basic responsibility, building a budget, starting to do savings account, learning about the impacts of interest, continuing to refine that knowledge about the budget, to get into the point where now over the last hour and some change, we've really talked about investing. I think the company that we created, we're going to make billions. What do you think, Gabriel? We can make billions with our company?
Yes.
All right, absolutely. We're all going to be billionaires. And you know, as we started off, and I got to pause to make sure we've done this. Is everybody on the call here? Have you completed your post survey? Come online and tell me yes or no, please. Gabe, yes. Your pre-survey, all right? You just give me a thumbs up. I got one. Give me a head shake if you're on camera. If you're still in the room, you hadn't fallen asleep, you know?
No, I'm not done yet.
You're not done yet? Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank
Is
you.
it in the link? I haven't done it yet.
Okay. Yeah, there is a link. We can put it out there again because this is critical. Because remember, one of the byproducts of this whole opportunity of spending all this time here is that if you have established a savings account and you have put up to $100 into it, that once you're verified through the system, you have the ability to have that amount of money matched by the 100 Black Men of America, and the chapter here will help facilitate that. So if you put $100 in there as an investment today, you know, and I think you have until May to the end of school year to accomplish that you can double your income.
It needs to be done by no later than April 30th.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. April 30th, you can double your investment. And I tell you, in the investing world, that is hard to find, something that gets you a 50%, 100% return of your money. So Gabriel, you go put $40 in the bank, you got $80. You can almost have two games, you know? And so I would hope to think that there's some incentive out there. It's to emphasize the importance of investing in yourself with these classes and investing in your future through financial services. Before I really wrap up, I'd like to turn it back over to Kevin so that he can kind of give us any summarization or closing. Then I'll make some comments and I'll turn it back over to Dr. Harris. Kevin?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had it on mute. I was getting on to one of my kiddos. Hey,
Understand.
I post, forget that first one. That's long. I posted the second one, a YouTube channel. There is a guy named Anthony O'Neill, right? He does an excellent job at teaching just the things that we're talking about, basic budgeting, right? He is probably 20s, something like there, young guy. And so a lot of good information from that YouTube channel there, just about the things that we just that Ivory just talked about, you know, budgeting, basic bank accounts. He talks some about investing, and he is Black, right? He's African American, and so a lot of good information there. So, but the really good thing that you guys have on your side is time, right? And you're young now, and you're gonna blink, you're gonna open your eyes, you're gonna be looking at, hey, I used to have really nice dreads right there, right? Had braids, and now they're all gone, and my hairline starts back here, right? It's not fair, right? So, but you have time on your side, and also just you have your parents on your side as well, just the place you're starting off in life, right? And so really focus on just the budgeting part and thinking of ways to make money. How can I make money doing the things that I'm doing right now that are, you know, like Gable's playing video games, right? I mean, Twitch that's a legitimate way to make funds. I really don't know what Jamani or Armani or any of these other guys are doing. If you're into makeup, hair, I mean, braids, I mean, teaching people just some basic stuff that comes natural to you is a way to make money, right? And add to your and invest in yourself, right? So go back with the basic of open up a bank account, brokerage account, investing, right? But also investing in yourself and taking opportunities to think of these different ways that you can make a living enjoying what you do, right? And then also as you start to make more of the money, right? One of the things you're gonna want to get on individuals you want to get on your side is a really good CPA before the fact, right? Not ask someone to do your taxes, but someone's going to help you sit down and come up with a process and a structure to help you minimize your taxes and those things, right? So that's what Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett and Bill Gates have on their side, and Mark Zuckerberg. They have a good team of people in that part as well that help them with that. So I hope that was a good thing. I hope you enjoyed this.
Absolutely. I think you did a phenomenal job. And remember that all of this process, all the things that we've talked about is part of our Wells Fargo hands-on banking system that we have. I'm going to share my screen again so that everybody knows about. If I can get the screen sharing, I'd like to show them again the website that they could have access to, which it's catered for 3 levels between elementary, middle, and high school. So, you know, you always got to look at a way to give back and to continue to go forward. I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat there for everybody. But for my middle schoolers, I would say that what I would challenge you to do is go to the website, and if you've got siblings, cousins, or anything like that, kind of go to the website and walk somebody else down this pathway of what you've learned. Because if you hold on to this knowledge, then you're doing an injustice to the whole process, because we've got to continue to lift each other up to the next level, regardless of the age or gender, but we got to continue to reach back. That's why we at the 100 Black Men of San Antonio continue to make sure that opportunities are afforded to you, such as this hands-on banking. It's an important process in your economic development and part of our economic empowerment plan, because at some point you have to look at how you're going to leave a legacy in your name, for your family. And it's hard to do when you're, below the age of 25, to think about how are they going to remember me in 100 years from now. But you have to start today with thinking about that future and that legacy, and how you're going to impact not just your kids, but your kids' kids that you may never ever see as part of your generational wealth building and making it better for the next group of people. On that note, I will turn it back over to Dr. Harris for any other wrap-up comments. I think it's been a phenomenal opportunity today. Thank you very much for your attention, guys and gals.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ivory, and thanks, Kevin, for a wonderful job. Great session. I've placed the survey links in the chat area again. For those of you who have not finished those, remember you have until the end of April to make sure your savings accounts has been established and to save as much as you can. The 100 Black Men, like I said earlier, will match up to $100. Also, the winners of the Kindle notebooks, but we will announce those winners by the end of next week. So if you're one of those fortunate winners, we will be reaching out to you to make arrangements to get you those computers as well. Job well done for our young people. We definitely want to keep in touch with you. I definitely want to know where you are in 10 years so we can look back on this and see how getting information like this at such a young age impacted your life. Because I know it will impact your life if you follow the principles that you learned over the last 3 sessions. It definitely will impact your life. To our audience and partners at TAN TV and the AKAs, thank you so much for partnering on this endeavor. We want to thank all of our speakers and teachers during this process. From all of us here at Conversations with the 100, we say thank you. Bid you a good day. Stay warm out there and be safe. Happy investing.